Oh, this is beautiful. This is absolutely magnificent. You want to know what's sitting in a classified folder somewhere right now? A document with your name on it. A psychological profile that was supposed to decode you, predict you, reduce you to a series of checkboxes and behavioral patterns. And you know what happened when they tried to complete it? It broke. Not metaphorically. Literally broke. 47 contradictions. 47 times the data said one thing and you did another. 47 moments where their carefully constructed model collapsed in on itself like a dying star. And now they're sitting in fluorescent lit rooms, staring at screens, wondering how a single human being can be simultaneously everything and nothing they expected. See, they thought they had you figured out. They really did. They watched your patterns, tracked your decisions, analyzed your responses to stress, to betrayal, to success, to failure. They fed everything into their algorithms, their personality matrices, their predictive models. And for a while it seemed like it was working. They thought they could see you coming from a mile away. They thought they knew which buttons to push, which triggers to pull, which wounds to poke to get the reaction they wanted. But then you did something that wasn't in the script. And then you did it again, and again, and again, until their neat little profile started looking less like a document and more like a crime scene. Red flags everywhere, error messages multiplying, analysts arguing with each other because your data didn't make sense, because you don't make sense, not to them. Not to anyone who's trying to fit you into a box that was never built to hold what you've become. Let me tell you what they wrote in that profile before it started falling apart. They wrote that you were introverted. Check the box. Catalog the evidence. Subject prefers solitude. Avoids large social gatherings. Seems uncomfortable in crowds. Classic introvert profile. Easy, simple, done. But then they watched you command a room. They watched you walk into spaces where you knew no one and leave with everyone knowing you. They watched you become the center of gravity in social situations that should have overwhelmed you. And suddenly that introvert checkbox didn't fit anymore. So they changed it. Extrovert. Subject displays charismatic tendencies. Natural leader. Draws attention effortlessly, except that didn't fit either, because the next week you disappeared, went silent, didn't respond to anyone for days, seemed perfectly content in isolation, almost seemed to prefer it, so they're back to introvert. No wait, extrovert. No wait, what the hell is this person? Contradiction. Number 1. And they haven't even gotten started yet. They profiled you as emotionally guarded. Cold even. Subject displays limited emotional expression. Maintains psychological distance from others. Possible attachment avoidance. They felt confident about this one. They'd watched you navigate situations that would have broken most people with this eerie calm that made them uncomfortable. You didn't cry when you should have cried. Didn't rage when you should have raged. You just observed, processed, moved forward, but then they saw you with someone who needed you. They saw the way you held space for another person's pain like you'd been doing it for lifetimes. They saw the depth of your empathy, the way you could feel what others felt so intensely it was almost visible. They saw you cry over a stranger's story. They saw you carry other people's burdens like they were your own sacred responsibility. Emotionally guarded? This person feels everything. Subject displays hyper-empathic tendencies, highly sensitive to emotional environments. Possibly too emotionally available. Contradiction number 2. And now they're starting to sweat. They documented your intelligence. High IQ, Analytical mind. Subject processes information rapidly. Excels at pattern recognition. Probably overthinks everything. They liked this assessment. It made you predictable in a way. Smart people follow logic. Smart people can be anticipated because they'll always choose the rational path. But then you made decisions that defied every logical framework. You walked away from opportunities that made perfect sense on paper. You stayed in situations that any rational analysis would say to leave. You trusted people the data said were untrustworthy, and cut off people the data said were safe. You operated on something they couldn't measure, couldn't quantify, couldn't predict. Subject appears to make decisions based on factors not present in available data. Possible intuitive processing that overrides analytical function. Unable to predict decision-making patterns. Contradiction number 3. And their confidence is cracking. Here's where it gets really interesting. They profiled your relationship to power. Subject displays submissive tendencies, avoids conflict, prefers to defer to authority. They based this on watching you stay quiet when you could have spoken up, on seeing you let others take credit, on observing how you seem to shrink yourself in certain environments. But then they saw you with someone who crossed a line. They saw what happens when you decide you're done being quiet. They saw you dismantle someone's entire argument with 3 sentences. They watched you hold your ground against pressure that makes most people crumble. They witnessed the steel in your spine when it actually mattered. Submissive? This person has a dominant streak that activates situationally. Subject appears to strategically choose when to assert power. Possible manipulation of perceived weakness. They don't know which one is real, because both are real. You're both the person who stays quiet and the person who speaks with devastating precision. You're both the one who defers and the one who dominates. And you switch between them so seamlessly that they can't figure out which one is the mask and which one is the face. Contradiction number 4. And now they're calling in specialists. They tried to profile your moral framework. Subject displays strong ethical boundaries, appears to operate from a clear moral code, predictable in terms of right and wrong. But then they watched you make decisions that existed in gray areas their models couldn't process. They saw you lie to protect someone. They saw you tell brutal truths that destroyed comfortable illusions. They saw you forgive things that seemed unforgivable and refuse to forgive things that seemed minor. Your moral compass didn't point north. It pointed towards something they couldn't map. Subject's ethical framework appears to be internally consistent but externally unpredictable, unable to anticipate moral decisions based on conventional frameworks. Contradiction number 5. And their models are starting to smoke. They documented your response to stress. Subject shows signs of anxiety, elevated stress responses, possible trauma history affecting current function. They felt they understood this one. Trauma survivors follow patterns. They can be predicted based on their wounds. They can be manipulated through their triggers. But then they watched you walk through situations that should have activated every trauma response in the book, and you were calm. Not fake calm, not suppressed calm, genuinely deeply calm. Like you'd been there before, like you'd survived worse, like this particular fire was just a candle compared to the infernos you'd already walked through. Anxious? Subject displays remarkable stress tolerance, almost pathological calm under pressure, unable to determine source of psychological resilience. Contradiction number 6. And now they're questioning their entire methodology. They profiled your ambition. Subject displays high achievement orientation, driven by success, motivated by external validation and status. But then they watched you walk away from success like it was nothing. They saw you turn down opportunities that most people would kill for. They watched you choose peace over achievement, obscurity over recognition, depth over breadth. You weren't climbing, you were building something they couldn't see, something that didn't fit their definitions of success. Subject appears motivated by factors not captured in standard achievement metrics. Possible internal value system that overrides conventional ambition. Contradiction. Number 7. And now they're starting to argue with each other. Here's what they really couldn't figure out: your relationship to other people's opinions. Subject is highly affected by external perception, seeks approval, sensitive to criticism. They had evidence for this. They'd seen you modify your behavior in certain environments. They'd watched you shrink in the presence of certain people. They'd observed what looked like people-pleasing patterns that made you predictable. But then they saw you do something wildly unpopular without flinching. They watched you make choices that turned people against you, and you didn't even blink. They observed you exist in complete opposition to what everyone around you wanted, and you seemed more peaceful than ever. Subject appears to have selective sensitivity to external opinion, cannot determine which opinions matter to subject and which are irrelevant. No predictive framework available. Contradiction number 8. And now they're bringing in outside consultants. They tried to categorize your attachment style. Anxious attachment. No wait. Avoidant. No wait. Secure. No wait. Disorganized. You showed signs of all of them. You could be clingy and distant in the same relationship. You could be secure and terrified in the same moment. You didn't fit any single pattern because you'd evolved beyond their patterns. Subject displays fluid attachment responses that adapt to specific relational contexts, unable to categorize using standard attachment theory. Contradiction number 9. And now they're starting to question if their theories are even valid. They documented your self-perception. Subject has low self-esteem, evidence of self-doubt, internal critical voice. But then they observed how you carried yourself when you thought no one was watching. They saw the quiet confidence that didn't need an audience. They witnessed the way you backed yourself in moments that mattered. They noticed that your self-doubt seemed strategic rather than pathological, like you doubted yourself just enough to stay sharp, but not enough to stay stuck. Low self-esteem? Subject displays compartmentalized self-perception, high confidence in certain domains, low confidence in others, not consistent with standard self-esteem frameworks. Contradiction number 10. And now they're requesting more funding because they need more time. You want to know what drove them really crazy? Your predictability around unpredictability. They'd start to notice a pattern. They'd think, okay, when X happens, subject does Y. They'd build models around it. They'd feel confident, and then you'd do Z. Not because you knew they were watching, not because you were trying to confuse them, just because that's what felt right in that moment, because you're not operating from patterns anymore. You're operating from presence, from the immediate truth of each situation. And that's something their models can't capture. Subject displays what appears to be intentional unpredictability, but analysis suggests decisions are internally consistent using criteria we cannot identify. They started counting the contradictions. 1 became 10. 10 became 20. 20 became 30. By the time they hit 40, They were having meetings about whether to scrap the entire profile and start over. By 47, they gave up trying to make it coherent. The final report, and there is a final report, contains a section that basically admits defeat. Subject defies categorical analysis. Standard psychological frameworks insufficient to predict behavior. Recommend observational approach only. Do not attempt to anticipate decisions. Do you understand what that means? It means you broke their system. Not by trying to. Not by being deliberately confusing. Just by being authentically, completely contradictorily yourself. You contain so many versions of yourself that their single-story models couldn't hold you. You've evolved through so many iterations that their static assessments couldn't capture you. You're simultaneously strong and vulnerable, logical and intuitive, guarded and open, dominant and deferent. And that's not a flaw. That's not confusion. That's not mental illness or instability or disorder. That's complexity. That's what happens when a human being actually evolves instead of just calcifying into one predictable pattern. Most people become predictable because they stop growing. They find a version of themselves that works well enough, and they freeze there. They become their patterns. They become their responses. They become so consistent that any half-decent analyst could write their future for them. But you kept evolving. You kept dying and being reborn. You kept shedding skins that no longer fit. You kept surprising even yourself with what you were capable of. And every evolution added another layer, another dimension, another contradiction that their flat models couldn't hold. You're not inconsistent. You're multi-dimensional. And their tools are built for two-dimensional people. Here's what really scares them. If they can't profile you, they can't predict you. If they can't predict you, they can't control you. If they can't control you, they can't use you, manipulate you, direct you toward their purposes. You're useless to anyone who needs predictable pawns, because you're the piece on the chessboard that moves however it wants. They've tried to fit you into their categories so many times now. Introvert/extrovert, logical/intuitive, strong/vulnerable, leader/follower, simple/complex. And every single time you prove that you're both, that you're neither, that you're something else entirely that they haven't invented a word for yet. The 47 contradictions aren't errors in their assessment. They're accurate documentation of your impossibility. Each contradiction is a place where you refused to be one thing, where you insisted on being whole instead of half, where you chose complexity over convenience. And now they have a file on you that reads like a paradox, a document that contradicts itself because you contradict yourself, a profile that proves profiling you is impossible. They spent resources, time, expertise trying to fit you into a box, and all they got was 47 pieces of evidence that you don't fit anywhere. You want to know the funniest part? They're still trying. They haven't given up. They keep watching, keep documenting, keep hoping that eventually you'll settle into something predictable, that eventually you'll stop evolving, and they can finally finish the assessment. That one day you'll become consistent enough to control. But you won't. Because you've tasted what it feels like to be undefined. You've experienced the freedom of containing contradictions. You've learned that being unpredictable isn't a bug, it's a feature. The most powerful feature you've got. So let them keep counting contradictions. Let them fill their folders with evidence of your impossibility. Let them argue among themselves about who you really are. Because while they're trying to figure you out, you're out there being someone they haven't met yet. You're evolving into contradiction number 48 before they've finished analyzing 47. They built a psychological profile on you, and it contradicted itself 47 times. Not because you're broken, because you're too whole for their fragments to capture. Not because you're confused, because you're too clear for their clouded models to see. Not because you're unstable, because you're too dynamic for their static assessments to hold. You are the error message they can't debug, the variable they can't solve for, the data point that breaks every curve they try to draw. And that's not something to fix. That's something to celebrate. Let them contradict themselves trying to understand you. You've got more important things to do than make sense to people who've never experienced what it's like to be genuinely, terrifyingly, beautifully free. And there it was. That twitch at the corner of my mouth. That slight curl that I didn't even plan. It just happened. Right there. Right then. In the middle of their little performance. In the center of their carefully constructed moment, where I was supposed to crumble, where I was supposed to look confused, where I was supposed to ask questions and beg for clarity and show them that their words had weight. But I smiled. Not a big smile, not a laugh, not even something most people would notice. Just that small lift at the edge of my lips. That micro-expression that lasted maybe half a second. And I watched it land. I watched it hit them like a bullet. They didn't see coming. I watched the confusion ripple across their faces like I'd just spoken a language they didn't know I understood. And now they're spiraling. Funny thing is, I wasn't even thinking anything specific in that moment. My mind was almost blank. Almost peaceful. I was just observing, watching them perform their little script, watching them hit their marks and deliver their lines. And somewhere in my head, somewhere deep in that quiet place I've built over years of surviving things they'll never understand, a thought floated up like smoke. They have no idea who they're dealing with. That's it. That's all it was. Just that one thought drifting through my consciousness like a cloud passing the sun. And my face betrayed it. My face showed them something I didn't mean to reveal. Not the thought itself, but the energy behind it. The calm, the unbothered, untouchable, unreachable calm of someone who's already been through worse. Someone who's already survived the unsurvivable. Someone who looks at their little power play and sees it for what it really is. Amateur hour. But they don't know that's what I was thinking. They don't know the smile was almost involuntary. They don't know it was just my soul exhaling for a moment. No. They think I know something. They think that smile was strategic. They think I've got information, evidence, receipts. They think I've been 10 steps ahead this whole time, just waiting for them to walk into my trap. And now I'm watching them unravel from the inside out. It's actually beautiful if I'm being honest. The way their confidence cracked. The way their eyes darted to each other, searching for reassurance that didn't come. The way the energy in the room shifted from predator to prey in the span of a heartbeat. All because of a smile. All because I didn't react the way their script demanded. They expected fear. They expected confusion. They expected me to scramble, to defend, to explain myself like I owed them something. But I just stood there, calm, quiet, and then I smiled. What was I really thinking in that moment? Let me take you there. Let me walk you through the inside of my head when everything changed. I was thinking about how tired I am. Not physically tired, but tired of pretending I don't see what I see. Tired of playing smaller than I am, so they feel comfortable. Tired of watching people perform confidence they don't actually have, while I sit in silence knowing I could dismantle their entire narrative with the truth. But I don't. I never do. Because I learned a long time ago that the most powerful position isn't the one that speaks, it's the one that knows when not to. I was thinking about how predictable they are. Every move telegraphed. Every manipulation textbook. Every attempt to intimidate me following patterns I recognized years ago. They think they're being clever. They think their little games are sophisticated. But I've read this book already. I've seen this movie. I know how it ends. And that knowledge, that bone-deep familiarity with the mechanics of manipulation, it settled into my face as peace. And peace, to people who need chaos to control, looks terrifying. I was thinking about all the times I should have smiled but didn't. All the moments I let their words land like they meant something. All the energy I wasted being affected by people who couldn't affect me if I just stopped giving them permission. And in that room, in that moment, I finally stopped. I finally let go of the performance of being bothered. And what came through was the truth. I'm not scared of you. I never was. I was just pretending to be. And I'm done. But they read it differently. They saw the smile and their minds went into overdrive. What does he know? What has she figured out? Why aren't they reacting? Why do they look like they're watching a comedy instead of participating in a crisis? And that's the part that keeps them up at night now. The not knowing, the uncertainty. The terrifying possibility that I've been aware of everything this whole time. That every move they thought was hidden was actually observed, documented, filed away for future reference. They're probably having meetings about me right now. Emergency conversations, whispered calls at midnight. What did that smile mean? What do they know? How much have we exposed? Should we be worried? Should we be scared? Yes. Yes, you should be. Not because I'm plotting revenge. Not because I'm gathering evidence to destroy you. Not because I have some master plan to bring you down. But because you've just realized something that's going to eat you alive. You've just discovered that you never had power over me. You just had my compliance. And compliance can be withdrawn at any moment. That smile was the withdrawal notice. I think about what was running through my mind, and it wasn't anger. That's what they don't understand. Angry people look angry. Hurt people look hurt. But I wasn't either of those things in that moment. I was something far more dangerous. I was amused. Genuinely, authentically amused by the absurdity of the situation, by the gap between who they think they are and who they actually are, by the distance between what they thought they were doing to me and what was actually happening inside my mind. They thought they were attacking. I was observing a case study. They thought they were winning. I was taking notes on how desperation performs when it thinks it's in control. They thought I was the victim in this scene. I was the audience member who accidentally wandered onto stage and decided to watch the actors panic up close. And when you're that detached, when you're that far removed from the emotional script they need you to follow, your face does strange things. It relaxes, it settles into something that looks like knowing, like patience. Like someone who's seen the end of the story and isn't worried about the middle. That's what the smile was. Not strategy, not intimidation, just the natural expression of someone who isn't invested in the outcome anymore because they've already survived worse than anything these people could create. But try explaining that to them. Try telling paranoid people that the smile wasn't about them, that it wasn't some calculated move in a chess game they didn't know they were playing. They'll never believe it. They're too deep in their own heads now, too consumed by the possibilities, too busy constructing elaborate theories about what I might know, what I might do, what I might be planning. And here's the delicious part. Their paranoia is going to do more damage than anything I could actually do. They're going to start second-guessing each other. They're going to wonder who talked, who leaked, who's been feeding me information. They're going to turn on each other, trying to find the source of my supposed knowledge. And all because I smiled at an inconvenient moment. I'm living rent-free in their heads now, and I didn't even buy a ticket. What they don't understand is that my smile wasn't about what I know. It was about what I've become. And what I've become is someone who can stand in the middle of chaos and feel nothing but curiosity. Someone who can watch people try to destroy me and feel nothing but mild interest in their technique. Someone who's been through so much genuine darkness that their manufactured drama feels like a child's game. They didn't know they were coming at someone who's already died and come back multiple times. They didn't know they were trying to intimidate someone who's had conversations with the void and won. They didn't know they were attempting to break someone who's already been broken and rebuilt themselves with materials stronger than anything they possess. So when I smiled, it wasn't confidence, it was completion. It was the face of someone who's finished being affected by people who haven't earned the right to affect them. It was the expression of a soul that's finally arrived at the place where external chaos can't reach internal peace. And that, apparently, is the most terrifying thing they've ever witnessed. I've noticed the changes since that day. The way they watch me differently now, the careful distance they maintain, the way conversations stop when I enter rooms, the nervous energy that surrounds me like an invisible field. They're treating me like a bomb that might go off, like a sleeping dragon they don't want to wake, like someone who holds secrets that could end everything they've built. And I just keep smiling. Not the same smile. That would be too obvious. Just the general energy of someone who's unbothered, unworried, unaffected by their obvious attempts to figure me out. I go about my day, I do my work, I have my conversations, but there's something different in my presence now. Something they can feel but can't name. It's freedom. That's what it is. The smile cracked something open in me, broke some final chain I didn't even know I was still wearing. Before that moment, I was still performing, still pretending to care what they thought, still investing energy in their opinion of me. But the smile was the moment I stopped, the moment I let them see, even accidentally, that their entire operation means nothing to me. And once you show people that, once they realize they have no leverage, no power, no ability to move you, they don't know what to do with themselves. Some of them are trying harder now, doubling down on their tactics, throwing more ammunition at walls I've long since reinforced, and every attempt that fails just confirms what the smile suggested, that I'm beyond their reach, that I've evolved past their ability to hurt me, that whatever weapons they're using were designed for a version of me that no longer exists. Others are trying to get close, suddenly friendly, suddenly interested, suddenly wanting to be on my side. Because if they can't figure out what I know from the outside, maybe they can get the information from the inside. Maybe they can earn my trust and learn my secrets. Maybe they can become my friend and discover what's really behind that smile. But I see through that too. And now when they're friendly, I'm friendly back. Warm, open, completely pleasant. And somehow that's even more unsettling to them. Because they can't tell if I'm fooled by their act or if I'm just playing a deeper game. They can't tell if my warmth is genuine or if I'm keeping my enemies even closer than they're trying to keep me. The truth? I genuinely don't care anymore. That's the part they'll never understand. The smile wasn't the beginning of some master plan. It was the end of giving them space in my head. I'm not plotting. I'm not scheming. I'm not gathering ammunition for some future confrontation. I'm just living, finally, actually, authentically living without the weight of their opinions dragging me down. But they can't accept that. They can't believe that someone who smiled like that isn't planning something. So they'll keep watching, keep analyzing, keep constructing theories about my intentions. And they'll keep destroying themselves with their own paranoia, while I just exist in peace. That's the real power of that smile. Not what it revealed, but what it concealed. Not what it meant, but what they think it meant. Not what I was actually thinking, but the 1,000 possibilities now running through their minds. I smiled at the wrong moment, and now they think I know everything. The beautiful truth? I don't need to know everything. I just needed to stop being afraid of them. And that smile, that one unplanned micro-expression, showed them that I'm not afraid anymore. I never will be again. And they have no idea what to do with that information. So they'll keep meeting, keep whispering, keep trying to figure out the person I've become, and I'll keep living my life, walking my path, building my future with that same quiet energy that started this whole spiral. They wanted me scared. They got me free. They wanted me desperate. They got me amused. They wanted me broken. They got me smiling. And now they have to live with what that smile created in their minds. The doubt, the uncertainty, the creeping suspicion that maybe, just maybe, they chose the wrong person to underestimate. Sleep well tonight, if you can. I know I will. After all, I have nothing to worry about. But you're just starting to realize how much you don't know about the person standing in front of you. The one who smiled when they shouldn't have. The one who looked at your best shot and found it entertaining. The one who's watching you panic right now and thinking the same thing that started all of this. You have no idea who you're dealing with. And that smile was just the beginning of you finding out.